Hello, this is Christine again, and welcome to the latest episode of Building with Claude Code, where we get a chance to walk through some of the features that Claude has as we build a subscription management app. And we've done quite a few things and some cleanup work. In the last episode, we wrangled with the API and got that to work pretty well. So in this particular episode, we're going to be looking at what we can do to basically bring the front end and the back end together. So just a quick recap. On the front end, we have UI all set up and we're using TinyBase for a local first approach. But at some point when there is a connection, we want to send the data to the back end and it'll eventually be persisted in a Turso database. So that's what we're going to start working on this time round. And this is a little bit of a tricky type of implementation. So what I'm going to do is I am going to ask Claude to just think a little bit through what it's wanting to do. And the keywords, if you want Claude to just basically think a little bit more, is just give it the think keywords. So here, I know that the next step in the implementation plan is this front end to back end integration. And this is related to sync logic and conflict resolution. But I don't want it to make any changes yet. I want it to just walk me through what it's planning to do for this fix. So here you go. Let's hope we can kind of like churn through that and think through and give me a plan before it starts to make any code changes that just could be pretty overwhelming. So we'll let it think through this and walk me through what it's planning. All right, so it wants to design online offline detection service, design some sync service, implement conflict resolution and UI indicators. So it's going to create a React hook and a sync service that's to manage the sync errors, conflict resolution, including an updated at timestamp, and fetch the latest from the server. And on local changes, it's going to say locally, and on reconnection, sync any pending changes. This looks like a pretty good plan to me, so I am going to set it loose and have it start implementing all of this. Let me just say, let's start with the online detection. So yeah, let's start with the first step. Yeah, start with designing the online offline detection. So we're gonna let it go, get going, and it's probably gonna spin out a whole bunch of files. So it's got these hooks ready to go. And when it's back, we'll come back and see what it's done. Let me catch you up on what it's done. It created an online status hook that's basically going to be checking an API endpoint from the server to determine whether or not there's a connection. Then it created a context to just be able to pass on this value, a status indicator that is going to be used by the hooks, a component that displays whether it's online or offline. So it's basically done that design. And so it's now ready to get into the sync service. So under the front end, it's got some services it's going to design for that. And we'll just wait for it to kind of go ahead and set some of this as well. All right, so in the front end services, we've got that a sync operation for a record, structure for what's pending, whether you're idling, etc. And these are some of the types that it's going ahead and creating related to be, I'm assuming it's going to be used during the rest of the app. And I'm going to let it churn and come back when it's gotten a little further along. Since we're here and it's going pretty quickly, these are all the pending operations that it's going to be queuing. Interesting. Let's let it go. This is a good file to look into. So in the sync service, it has API client, and here is where it's going to be connecting through the API base URL to the subscriptions endpoint that we have for the backend, able to fetch, for example, a single subscription. It can create a new subscription. So these are all the endpoints that we previously tested with Postman, and we can see that this is kind of like the crux of how it interacts with the backend. There is one thing that I just want to keep in mind. This API endpoint, I don't believe this is actually there, so we'll just make sure that if it's not there when we're done with this, we will ensure that it gets set up. This is another one to potentially scroll through, and this is managing how between TinyBase and the backend, for example, if there's some information that comes through, how often it should be checking the backend, how many tries it needs to do. So this is a lot of syncing that hopefully you'll be able to get a chance to look at when we make the code available. But it's a lot of code, and at this point we are just trusting the process. But I can see here it's just checking the queue and then updating it in the local store. So I guess the key here is that there are some changes that may be local that need to be sent to the server, and there's some things that the server has that might need to be sent locally if changes have been made. For example, if they're two different devices. So this is what it's trying to resolve, this conflict resolution. Okay. Jumping in here really quickly again, it's made some changes to basically the main app entry point, that component, to add this online status provider and the sync provider. And these will provide context, for example, to control the online or offline status, as well as to sync the data back and forth. So this is the last step in the process for changing the front end code. Oh, we're not quite done yet. There's some extra things it needs to update, some of the hooks as well. And I just like the fact that it's telling me what it's doing, even though I might not have much of a clue unless I examine the files to see what exactly it did. And here's another file that it's changing, and this is the hook that does the work of adding subscriptions. And as you can see, it's made some modifications related to just getting a sense of what is the timestamp, so that it knows how to basically do the conflict resolution between the two of them, and it's using the sync manager to do that as well. Just wanted to point that out as we continue to have it change some of this code. I really like that it's giving me what it's planning to do. And as I noted before, I didn't know that it had noticed that it didn't have that back-end health checkpoint, but it looks like it knows about that. And I'll have it continue. I even misspelled it. Hopefully it knows what I was trying to say. Well, obviously it didn't, so let me tell it to go ahead and implement the back-end checkpoint. It should be pretty straightforward. The very basic thing just does kind of like a hello world. Quick check-in here. It wanted to change how it stores data to persist data locally, and basically just going to ask it, we already have local storage, can we stick with just that? So I'm just questioning why it wants to use IndexedDB. And if you look at the browser for TinyBase, there are different types of persisters, and we had local persisters, and it was trying to do the IndexedDB. So just want to make sure that it's explaining what it's trying to do here. And so we'll simplify the implementation. So let me update the code. All right. Okay, so let's just go ahead with that, and hopefully that should make it not too complicated. All right, is everything done? Just double checking that it's all done. Yes, all tasks are done. We've implemented the sync architecture, supports offline functionality, and between the server and the client. And what we're going to do is take a pause right now. It's always fun to see things when they're completely done. But in the next episode, we're going to check out and ensure that the front end and back end synchronization is working as planned. So join us in the next episode as we continue building with Claude Code.